Welcome back to Backyard Science. I'm Zoe with the Jackson Bottom Wetland Preserve, and this week we're talking about ecology, the study of how organisms interact with each other and their environment. Today we're going to focus on the environment part. So what does environment mean? Well, an ecosystem has living things, organisms, and non-living things. We call those non-living things abiotic factors. Pretty much does not breathe, does not have a reason to survive, does not need to eat, drink. It is just something like rain. It's raining right now. That is an abiotic factor in an environment. Also, wind. I don't know if you can see, but there is a bit of wind. That is abiotic. So all of the things that are on this planet that aren't living would be abiotic, and we're going to talk about how those influence the biotic or living things on this planet. Can you think of some abiotic factors that you've interacted with? So if these abiotic factors start to change, like say we start getting a lot more rain than normal or we have less rain than normal, what does that do for the organisms that live in that area? Depending on where you live, there is an average weather and temperature pattern that you experience. When those things start to change over a long period of time, then we're talking about climate and climate change. And you've probably heard that term before. Maybe you've heard global warming. So what is global warming? Well, it is just like how it sounds. The globe or the Earth is warming on average over a long period of time. And this directly relates to human activity. Climate change not only looks at the globe warming, but also other abiotic factors changing as well. So as time has gone on, we have seen more severe storms. We have also seen sea levels rising, just to name a few examples. And as all these changes are happening to the actual planet and the environment, these organisms that live in them do need to figure out how to adapt. Another thing that is changing these abiotic factors is pollution. And pollution can be many forms, but it mostly means that it is coming from human waste getting into the environment. And it's important to know that nothing goes away when you throw it away. It always ends up somewhere. So you have to be very careful of what you're putting into Mother Earth. There can be plastic pollution, so our water bottles, anything that we use that is plastic, those don't go away when you throw them away. They don't break down, but unfortunately they do release chemicals into the soil or the ocean. And so that can greatly affect the animals that live there. It's toxic, it's not something you want to breathe in, so it's not something that those animals want to breathe in or eat. There's also oils, like from cars and from boats. Those can get into our oceans, they can get into the atmosphere. So now it's pretty obvious that everything has a relationship with everything else. One organism's activities can affect another's, and all of these non-living things on our planet, these abiotic factors, affect everybody. So what does that mean? Let's do a quick activity that helps show that everything is connected in an ecosystem and that a small amount of pollution has a large effect. So this is a Watershed model we're going to make. And what is a watershed? Well, it is an area of land where there are rivers and lakes, and then there is land that sheds its water into those rivers and lakes. All of the precipitation that happens at the top of a mountain does end up somewhere else. And so we're going to see what happens when a little bit of pollution is added to our watershed. For this activity, you're going to need a few things. We're going to need some tin foil crumpled up into a ball, and we are also going to need somewhere to put our tin foil. So any type of container will work. And then we are going to use food coloring to represent our pollution. And then you'll also need something to hold your water that will represent your rainwater. I'm using a teapot. I did put a drop of blue food coloring in my water just to make it more visible on the tin foil. It is hard to see on camera, but that is totally optional. So getting started, we're going to open up our tin foil ball, being careful to not make too many rips in it. So once you have it all opened up, you are going to put it in your container, and this is your watershed. As you can see, there are hills, there are craters, and that's exactly what we want. So it should look something like this, having high points and low points. And when you're ready, you can grab your water and start pouring it over your entire watershed, paying attention to where the water collects. Now we're going to grab our food coloring or our pollution, and we can call this maybe runoff from a factory. And we're just going to want to put 1 or 2 drops in one area of our watershed. So what do you think will happen once it rains after we have some pollution in the environment? Do you think that the pollution will go away, or do you think that maybe it will spread? So what do you notice? Well, I definitely noticed that there is a lot more pollution than there was before. Try putting pollution in different parts of your watershed. How does that change where it spreads to? So what's the takeaway here? How do we make sure that these pollutants don't get into our watershed? Well, as humans, we do have a responsibility to make sure that we are not harming our planet or the other organisms that live on it. This means that we should be recycling and reusing as much as possible, and when we go out into natural environments, we don't want to leave things behind like our trash.